So, hello, welcome back to another stream of mine. Today we are probably going to go ahead with certain Reddit questions or we're going to go ahead with the book summary that we have started yesterday. Would actually be quite amazing to know the book summary because I don't remember, unfortunately. But let me see. I know the site still, and that it is actually. But I don't know, like, well, let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about it and see what I can sustain it, you know, because I really do not necessarily feel like going through it and talking about it, but you know, from time to time one has to do certain things that one does not necessarily really like to do. And so I think, well, great fucking shit, isn't it? Good that I know where I've stopped. Really, really nice. But I think that I went through, so the first one, yes. So this one, then the mega political transformations in history, yes. East of Aden, I think yes as well, and this is then where I've stopped with the last days of politics, parallels between the decline of the church and the nation state. So this is just what I'm gonna go ahead with. I guess that I am gonna take it rather slowly and not push myself to go through as many sections as I can, because I still want to take my time and talk about the things that I'm reading and also read it in a way that I guess is nice. Perfection is a synonym for exhaustion. Just as we master a certain technology, a new innovation comes along to blow it away. Right as we perfected the horse-mounted cavalry, gunpowder was invented and any peasant could defeat a knight. Yes, which by the way is actually really interesting, at least at my point of view. The fact that, you know, back in the days, chivalry, you know, sword fighting, this was a skill, you know, a really, really well, basically a skill that you really had to train. You know, it's not been something that everyone was able to do, at least not just from, you know, from birth quite. But then, you know, when guns came into play, quite everyone was able to shoot them and quite everyone was able to kill with them, you know, which was just definitely not the case back in the days. With knives and swords and you know, these things. Mass production of books ended the church's monopoly on scripture and information. Wider book availability increased literacy, more people could contribute thoughts on important subjects, and it threatened the church's monopoly on theology and information. The dramatic change of 500 years ago will happen again. The information revolution will destroy the monopoly of power held by the nation state, just as the gunpowder revolution destroyed the church's monopoly. The downsizing of the church liberated productivity, since its monopoly on information and power got in the way of growth in a few ways. High direct costs from tithes, taxes and fees, religious doctrines made savings difficult, demanding you to donate to the church and the poor and avoid being a miser. Spending huge amounts of money on relics related to Christ instead of economic development. When Protestants denominations arose, there was competition within the church, leading to significantly less access of the Catholic Church, giving people their year back for work and reducing the cost of staying faithful. The break in the monopoly released huge amounts of assets that were being held in the church with low returns, freeing up the money for more lucrative projects. Protestant churches lifted the bans on earning interest on money, among other things, rapidly accelerating capitalism. The end of the 15th, and this is a quote apparently, yes, the end of the 15th century was a time of disillusion, confusion, pessimism, and despair, a time much like now. Delusion, confusion, well, I would certainly as well say that there is a ton of confusion going on at this point. Especially, you know, regarding COVID, regarding what is going on at this point in time, but in general, regarding, at least at my point of view, political and governmental things. You know, there's a lot of confusion and definitely also a lot of misconceptions. And well, I think pessimism was always a part of that. You know, pessimism was always a part of the government and well, politicians and politics in general. Maybe it's just me, but well, maybe not pessimism. Pessimism might be the wrong word, but it kind of goes into the same direction, like kind of knowing that there is something going on in the background that we just don't know about, and well, maybe also understanding that it's never going to be like I want it to be like. You know, of course, there are certain parties, and we in Austria have multiple parties, as I guess it is quite common in most of Europe, I would say. And therefore, there's also, or you are quite able to choose which party to support, which party you think is the best one. But most of the time, I really gotta say, it's more or less, okay, I'm gonna choose the one that is the least bad, you know? It's not necessarily about, okay, I'm gonna choose the one that I really like to support and really like to deal with and really want my country to just govern. No, not really. You know, it's more or less like, okay, I'm gonna choose this one because this is the least one that is gonna fuck shit up, you know, in the end. So I don't know. You know, regarding all those things, I guess there was always a bit of confusion, disillusion, and all the other words and adjectives that have been thrown around there. But well, regarding all those revolutions and all those things that changed, it is quite amazing, you know, and I do also hope that certain things are going to change in the future and are going to revolutionize in the future. And well, I would say that this is inevitably going to be the case. You know, we evolve, fortunately, you know, we do not stay in the same places, in the same spaces of minds and so on and so forth. So things just change, especially also technology, and I guess with technology a ton of other things change as well, to the good and also to the bad. Of course, when you're having a certain job that is going to be replaced by AI or robotics or whatnot, this is not that amazing for you. But in the end, I guess it's going to help us in general to go ahead with technology, to go ahead with development. The life and death of the nation state. If you went into a store to buy furniture and the salespeople took your money but then proceeded to ignore your request and consult others about how to spend your money, you would quite rightly be upset. The fact that something very like this happens in dealing with governments shows how little control its customers, quote unquote, actually have. One of the advantages of privatizing formerly state-owned functions is that private control weeds out unnecessary employment. The costs of democratic government for all things is significantly higher than those functions need to be. Firing employees, downsizing departments, these kinds of changes are extremely difficult. Taxation based on income is silly. Imagine if the phone company sent you a bill for $50,000 because your phone call to London scored you a $125,000 deal. I mean, well, let's just read the whole thing, and then I'm gonna pick those certain points that I would like to discuss a bit further. The democratic nation state has succeeded for the last 200 years because increasing scale of violence made the magnitude of power more important than efficiency. Income rose enough above subsistence that the state could collect large amounts of money without having to negotiate with powerful magnates. Democracy proved compatible with the operation of free markets to help with generating more wealth. Democracy helped domination of government. Domination of government by its employees, making it harder to cut costs, fire people, reduce military spending, etc. Democracy as a decision mechanism restricted the rich's ability to work together to curtail the government's power. The information age will require new mechanisms of representation and government to avoid chronic dysfunction and even social collapse. The past system will break down as technology advances. In terms of privatizing, so this was the end of this little section, and actually a very juicy section. Privatizing things, at least at my point of view, really does make sense. Also, just because they already pointed out, most often governments do employ a lot of people that they basically do not really need, you know. In the end, it is very, 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 very unnecessary, you know, to have all those people, you know, maybe quite often as well, just doing jobs that per se are unnecessary at this point of time. You know, that could also be done by AI / just computers in general, which in the end is going to be way more efficient, which in the end is going to be way more cost efficient, you know, because, you know, they don't cost as much, you know. And at least it is the case in Austria. People that work for the state, you know, when it comes to law, when it comes to whatever it may be, they do earn quite a good income, you know, basically probably as well because the government can do that, you know, the government can give you that payment, you know, because they have enough money, because of taxation, because of whatever. On the other hand, it is also indeed, as they, as well, if I remember correctly, pointed out, very difficult to fire people when they are working for the government. For whatever reason, might actually be legislative reasons, might be due to laws and whatnot, but at least also in my place, it is the case that it is quite known that when you work for the government, that the chances of you being fired are extremely, extremely low. Just people say, you know, you basically can do anything. Of course, there is a certain point where you're gonna get fired. I guess when, well, of course, when you committed a crime, but I would also say that it needs to be some sort of an, you know, more, more bad crime. You know, of course, when you kill somebody, then you're probably gonna lose this job. But when there's something going on, like, I don't know, you driving your car too fast and whatnot, this is probably not going to be result in you getting fired. But on the other hand, yes, it is, at least where I live, quite the case that when you have a governmental job, that the chances of you being fired are quite low. This example for taxation based on income is silly. I mean, I do understand. Well, I'm going to repeat it. Taxation based on income is silly. Imagine if the phone company sent you a bill for $50,000 because your phone call to London scored you a $125,000 deal. Well, when it comes to this, you know, taxation based on income. Regarding this example, yes, it is really silly. You know, just because you're making X amount of money doesn't mean that you just have to pay X amount of money, basically. But at least at my point of view, you know, my opinion, if you earn a lot of money, then probably you can also give away a bit more money, since of course certain how do you call that, you know, people live a different life. You know, my spendings might be really low compared to somebody else. Even if we are in the same position, we're having the same income, whatever it may be. And so one could argue, because you're having more money, you can just also give more money away. In the end, your net money available to you is still going to be more than anyone else's. Also, you know, depends on taxation. At least at my place, we are having progressive, I guess it is called, taxation system, which means that the more money you earn, the more money you're also gonna pay. And there is, you know, certain percentages. So when you earn, I guess, from 0 to 10K a year, you're gonna have to pay nothing, I guess. And then from 10 to 25, I think the next step is, then you have to pay, I guess, 25% or something, up to, I guess, as far as I know, 66% of your income going to taxation, which, you know, of course it is a lot. You know, it really is a lot. But I would also argue that companies know that, and therefore certain positions just get paid more, so that in the end you're still going to have quite a decent amount of money, which of course is not necessarily meaning that this is okay to be done, you know, such high taxation. But I mean, how should you be doing it differently? What should the system be when it isn't like that? When it isn't based on income, which still, at my point of view, is viable. Okay, you make X amount of money, so that then you can also give away X amount of money. It is fine for you. You just have to be fine with what you have. A problem is, of course, when you're just very, very low in a certain region. When you're just making in a region of 10 to 25, when you're making 11K a year, and you still have to pay the same amount of taxes as the person that is making 25K a year. This is a bit of a problem, but companies also know that, and people also know that, and people then also make sure, and companies also make sure that you are not so low in this category that it's just not going to make sense for you, that you could also get paid less and have to just give less to taxation or taxes, or pay less in taxes, which just makes sense. I would argue for the company and also for the employee. But what could taxation be based on besides that? Taxation based on, let's just Google it, What is a tax base? Taxation not based on income. What kind of taxes do I need to pay as an experience? 12 top sources of non-taxable income. Let me see. This is actually not what I'm searching for, but let's have a look at it. Most of your income is probably taxable, but federal and state tax laws provide some exceptions. This now is very important to point out. Probably not gonna give you any value. It's not gonna give me any value. This is probably just for people living in the States, I assume. I don't know, but let's see. Certain investments can also provide tax-free income, blah, 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 blah. Disability insurance payments. Employer-provided insurance, which is the IRS. But I think there's also an IRA, isn't there? And I'm actually always seeing it when I try to inform myself about investing, that people that are living in the States should have an IRS. And now I know, because it is not taxated, apparently. Which is, quite cool, quite good. Health savings account, life insurance payouts, earned income in 7 states. What? States vary in the kinds of income they tax and the rates at which they tax it. 7 states, Alaska, Florida, Nevada, South Dakota, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming have no income tax at all. What? New Hampshire and Tennessee tax only interest income and dividends, not earned income from salary or wages. Now I kind of get the whole thing. I guess it wasn't necessarily, well, I'm actually sorry if you've understood that, but I didn't. I guess it is not necessarily about income or how you taxate income, or how taxation in terms of income should be done, but whether you actually need it or not. And I think this is a viable question to ask, because, well, there are certain other things that you could be having a tax on for, I don't know, more on buying groceries, more on, well, things that make sense. I don't know, consumption of certain things. I mean, alcohol and tobacco and whatnot, you can taxate that quite highly. And I do then also understand when people say, well, this makes more sense because those people that are consuming those goods or more of these goods, they're just gonna pay more in taxes, period. And when I'm making a lot of money, then I can still kind of control how much taxes I pay by just not doing X, Y, and or C, Regarding this, it really makes sense. And regarding this, I think it is also more Americanized, very, very, very quote unquote, also because I know that I have a lot of American listeners, but it makes sense in terms of your freedom. And just being able to choose your own path and your own destiny. Yeah, and with this realization, I'm going to end the episode. Thank you very much for listening or watching if you are on the stream, and I'm going to see you the next time. So, bye-bye.